Hi everybody, this is Kathleen Hinesley with Exploring Dimensions for All. And today I'm going to be reading Chapter 20 of my book, Welcome to Infinity, Exploring Ancient and Modern Techniques for Collaborating with Otherworldly Beings. And I'm excited about this chapter, about presenting this chapter, because it is on one of my very favorite subjects these days, remote viewing. And remote viewing is something that I hadn't had any direct formal training in when I wrote this chapter, but I have since studied with some different teachers. I've studied a variety of different kinds of remote viewing. I've studied associative remote viewing with Paul Smith, controlled remote viewing with Angela Thompson Smith, and also another teacher who offers both in-person and online sessions. And then I took advantage of a free video course in scientific remote viewing offered by Courtney Brown several years ago on YouTube, which is still available. So what I'll be doing is posting some links down below so that you too can get training in remote viewing if you're interested. The chapter explains what it is, so I don't need to go into it here. But anyhow, I think for me, it's a really exciting hobby. It does have practical uses as well. All right, so here we go. Remote viewing. If human beings, spirits, and inanimate objects are all composed of light vibrating at specific frequencies, and it is possible to access information about this plane and others across the time-space continuum by tapping into other vibratory frequencies, it follows that any and all information we might wish to know should be easily accessible to us. An experience I had while taking a college entrance exam convinced me that it is indeed possible to obtain information without active participation of the conscious mind. Having arrived at the appropriate time and place with my number 2 pencil, I stared at the test sheet. A jumble of ordered numbers and oval-shaped spaces marked by the letters A, B, C, D, and E. The first 3 questions were on English grammar. I wasn't sure exactly how to answer them, but could at least hazard a guess. Then I got to questions 4, 5, 6, and 7. They were English grammar questions, yes, but I could no more answer them than recite the daily sports page in Latin. It's just not fair, I thought. I'm a smart person. Why should I be judged on my ability to answer things I've never learned? My mind raced back to the first day of high school. I'd seen a short girl with red hair coming out of the principal's office. There was still some time before the next class, so I stopped to ask her some questions. "How do you like Alta?" I asked, and that's in caps, ALTA. Alta was an abbreviation for Alternative Learning Through Action, the alternative high school program I'd be attending. "It's terrible," she said. "I'll be graduating at the end of this semester and I haven't learned anything." "Oh, it's fun," she added. "Lots of fun. You'll learn about hiking and go on field trips. You'll get to study anything you want for history, but you won't be prepared for college at all. They don't teach you that kind of thing here. If you stay here, you'll regret it, but you won't know until it's too late." I listened to the girl with a sense of foreboding, but resolved not to give the matter any more thought. I absolutely had to attend Alta. All my friends would be going there. Now, staring at the college entrance exam before me, the girl's words came back again and again. "They don't teach you that kind of thing here. That kind of thing here. You'll regret it, but you won't know until it's too late. Until it's too late." I looked at the test paper again. Time was passing. I had to do something. I couldn't answer questions 4, 5, 6, or 7. I scanned ahead and read questions 22, 23, 24, and 25. I couldn't answer them either. I'd attempted the same test the year before and concluded that completing it would be futile. I'd walked out, resolving to study and try again. In the year that had elapsed, I'd studied a test preparation book several times a day and tried to better prepare myself. but the book I'd studied had contained different questions than the test I now had before me, so I was still ill prepared. Walking out and studying for another year was out of the question. It would simply be a waste of time. This seemed like an emergency. It felt like being strapped into a plane that was taking a nosedive or sitting in a sinking boat. Wait a minute, I thought. This is an emergency. If I don't get into college now, I may not ever be able to fulfill whatever purpose I'm supposed to fulfill. And if that's true, this isn't good for the universe as a whole, so I should be able to get some help here, if anyone is listening. By this time, of course, I knew someone was. By the age of 19, I'd seen and heard spirits and was convinced that individuals are surrounded by a variety of helpful forces that are quite willing to be of assistance. Was it crazy to ask for help with a test? If I did pray, who would I pray to? Would I pray to God or my spiritual helpers, or... Then I suddenly remembered the phrase, "We are all one." If we are all one, I reasoned, everything must be one with everything else. If that's true, I thought, some part of me knows the answers to these questions, and that part of me can move my hand. All I have to do is step out of the way and let it happen. Okay, I need help, folks, I said silently to the residents of the spirit world. If I'm supposed to get into college, please let my hand know which bubbles to pencil in. I can't answer these questions any other way. I've tried and I just don't have the information, but I don't want to give up. I waited a moment and then started filling in bubbles on the answer sheet randomly, trusting that somehow, some way, the spirit part of me, the part of me that was one with everything, would direct my hand to the right answers. Everything seemed to flow easily. I stopped reading the questions in the test booklet and just let my hand fill in the answers. At the end of the test, I walked out of the room with a feeling of lightness. If I hadn't passed, I knew I'd at least done everything I could. When the test report came in the mail, I tried to prepare myself for the worst. I had to accept failure as a distinct possibility. I opened the envelope slowly and turned to the admissions guidelines in the San Francisco State University handbook. I found my grade point average and scanned the page from left to right to find the ACT score required for admission. My eyes jumped from the letter to the book back and back again a few times before I could believe what I was seeing. I was the proud owner of the lowest passing ACT score needed for admission with my grade point average. Somehow, a part of me had been able to access the information I'd needed. But how? Remote viewing, a modern information gathering technique, first employed by the CIA in the mid-1970s and later by U.S. military personnel, utilizes what some believe is a natural human ability to access information across space and time without the use of the 5 physical senses. Remote viewing techniques seek to assist individuals in seeing past the perceptions of their conscious minds so they can know and perceive things at a distance without having their perceptions clouded by mental judgments. According to remote viewer Courtney Brown, remote viewing techniques work because people are both physical and subspace beings. Brown believes it is the subspace part of us that survives physical death. Quote, all evidence suggests, comma, 3 ellipsis dots, end quote, he explains, comma, quote, that the subspace mind is omnipresent across space and time, 4 ellipsis dots. Using the capabilities of the subspace mind, remote viewing involves no more than shifting one's awareness from one place and time to another. End quote, footnote 1. The Farsight Institute, quote, scientific remote viewing, an overview, end quote. So that's just to kind of separate out the section of the textbook. In SRV textbook, the online text for scientific remote viewing, and then I have a registered trademark symbol. Copyright 1996 to 2002, the Farsight Institute, www.farsight.org/SRV.overview.htm parentheses 21 April 2002 end parentheses. Ingo Swann, a writer and artist with natural psychic abilities, helped to develop remote viewing after serving as a research subject at the American Society for Psychical Research, and then in parentheses capital ASPR end parentheses, from 1971 to 72. At ASPR, Swann was given the task of identifying objects positioned on a tray that were out of his reach and field of vision. He was expected to accomplish this by traveling out of his body, rising up in the air, and looking down at the objects on the tray. And that is footnote 2, Ingo Swann, and then in all caps, section 2, and now in regular printing and in italics, remote viewing - the real story, an autobiographical memoir. Copyright 1996, Ingo Swann, Chapter 15, at www.biomindsuperpowers.com/pages/real story. Now, from pages to real story, each word has a capital letter at the beginning. And then it's capital CH15.html parentheses 21 April 2002 end parentheses. Swann found that he sometimes had difficulty accurately describing what he perceived about targets and began to utilize drawing as a means of communicating his perceptions to others. Footnote 3, IBID. And I just want to mention at this point that a lot of these online references, the reference method that I used actually mentions the date that I viewed the information at the end. At the time that I published this book in 2002, that was the way that you were supposed to footnote website information. So I followed that at the time. Okay, continuing on. In his online book, Remote Viewing - the Real Story, Swann describes drawing a UT one day, and he has that in capital letters. So letter U and letter T. After trying to perceive the number 5 on a target tray, he points out that the letters UT, when flipped sideways, resemble the shape of a 5. Swann suggests that the type of sensory perception used in remote viewing may function differently than ordinary sensory perception does. And that's footnote 4, IBID Chapter 16 at www.biomindsuperpowers.com /pages, and that has a capital P, /real story, and real and story each have initial caps, and then capital C, small h, 16.html. One day, while taking part in an experiment, Swann felt his awareness drift outside of the building where the experiments were being conducted. Once outside, he was able to view a woman walking by with an orange coat. His success in viewing this distant event led him to suggest experimentation with more remote targets. Several weather experiments were later conducted in which Swann was asked about weather conditions in distant places. He found that he was able to successfully acquire information on weather conditions without traveling outside of his body. He simply willed himself to arrive at a target destination in an instantaneous manner, and then reported on what he was able to perceive there. And that is footnote 5, IBID Chapter 17 at www.biomindsuperpowers.com/pages, and that has a capital P, /real story, capital R, capital S for those words, and then capital C, small h, 17.html. Swan was later invited by physicist Dr. Hal Puthoff to take part in experiments conducted at the Stanford Research Institute, now SRI International. By this time, Swan had developed his own ideas about the existence and nature of human extrasensory perception. In a letter to Puthoff, Swan wrote, quote, and then 3 ellipsis dots, "I have already decided that indeed a field of vision exterior to sensory data inputs exists, but the fields of viewpoint and dimensions are cluttered with perceptic overloads and packed with black particles which seem to be, surprisingly, the physical universe itself. The problem is to differentiate between particles and certain wavelengths without the use of the eyes." 5 ellipsis dots, end quote, footnote 6. IBID chapter 28 at www.biomindsuperpowers.com/pages, and that has a capital P, /real story, and the R and the S in real story have capital letters. Then capital C, small h, 28.html. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. I'm going to be continuing with part 2. And part 2 is also going to contain my epilogue. So I also want to remind everybody that I do have a lot of other videos on this channel. Please view those at your leisure. The ones that may be of interest to you. How to contact a spirit guide, how to help free a ghost. So I have one on the Mandela effect, one on time, a couple of channeled messages. Anyway, I hope that you have been enjoying this series. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Please subscribe if you haven't, and please share my videos with other like-minded people. All right, have a wonderful day, and I'll be coming back with part 2.